Dropshipping is one of those business models which everybody on the internet wants to talk about, but no one really talks about the struggles and problems which aspiring dropshippers may face. In this video, I want to give you guys a bit of a guide as to how you can get your dropshipping store to work a lot better. First, I must provide you with the context though, but if you enjoy videos like this, please do like and subscribe. First, I want to explain though, like I just said, how I know about this sort of stuff. Now, if you've been watching the channel over the course of the past few months since we started it mid this year, we've talked about all different sorts of stuff, but when it comes to dropshipping, I've done a lot with it. I've sold a lot of items on different platforms, and I've had a lot of success and a lot of failures. Most of the dropshipping stores that I've started have not made a penny. Actually, I started maybe 4 or 5 or 6 even dropshipping stores over the years if I think back, and only 3 of them have ever made money, actually 4 I think. But the reason that 4 of them have made any money in the first place, 2 of them making substantial amounts of money, is because I started to understand what it was all about. And I want to share that with you in this video. So let's talk about this in a bit more scope. When I started dropshipping, I was under the same premise as everybody else. It's just like what they teach you on the internet. It's a whole concept of, right, dropshipping. I set up a store on Shopify or a similar website, I launch ads for it, and eventually I'm going to get some traffic and that's going to convert to sales. But there's a big problem with this, especially for the early dropshippers that don't have much startup capital or experience. And this is a fact that is very capital intensive, which means of course it takes a lot of money. A lot of people are therefore going to struggle to finance this model, and after a few weeks or months they're probably going to learn that their ads are just not selling. It doesn't matter what the product is for. Every time I've launched an ad campaign, I've not made a sale off it. But I then started to change the way that I did things, which made me a lot more revenue and actually made me have a very successful business. But it's just by doing things a little bit different which can massively impact our results. So let's talk about what this entails. The first thing that I'd recommend is probably not starting a Shopify store if you're only just getting into the game. We're not talking about learning how to dropship here, we're talking about learning how to be a business person, and there's a lot of hurdles to learn already without having to start up your own website. You've got to learn how to register as a business, how to pay your tax, how to deal with your customers, how to find good items to source and supply, how to do everything else that comes with running a small business. To then have to go and make your own website and maintain it, that's an extra level of difficulty that you just don't need at this early stage. I recommend doing that a few months in when you have some startup capital and some money to play with and some experience, but in the early days I just don't see it as something that makes much sense for most people. If I was looking to start dropshipping, I'd look to do it on one of the platforms, one of the established platforms where I can get some sales right now, get some money pouring in, and then have more money to invest into the business going forwards. You guys know for a fact I recommend the following 3 platforms. Number 1, eBay in this order. Number 2, Etsy. Number 3, Amazon. I say eBay first because in my experience it's easy to get traffic, it's very simple to actually run and operate, and although there's a lot of hurdles and a lot of fees, it's very easy to get some money rolling in, which is a great start for any business. Number 2 is Etsy because it's also fairly easy to operate. The only thing that bumps it down a little bit for me is the nicheness of what sort of the categories are, and also the fact that there are upfront fees of 20 cents per listing, which whilst it might not sound like a lot, and it's not, it's something which is not necessarily the case on other platforms. And third is Amazon. Whilst being the biggest marketplace, I see Amazon as having quite a few more problems. First things first, you've got a lot to work through. Almost everything has to be approved, making processes more difficult, and on top of that you have to pay a monthly maintenance fee or a subscription fee of I think it's £30 per month, and for a startup that's not a good amount of money. But either of these 3 platforms are a great place to get started. You have an established audience to sell to, you have a platform where you can sell, giving you an air of authority and trustability to begin with, which you don't have with your own dropshipping store. When I start my own dropshipping store as a beginner, I don't have any credibility, I don't have any reviews, I don't have any information, whereas if someone was to buy on eBay, Amazon, Etsy, there is that knowledge that you do have a money back guarantee. You do have a platform which is known to be legitimate. You do have extra security measures in case anything goes wrong. And this might just be what the customer needs to get them feeling a little bit more reassured, which will make it more comfortable for them to make that sale. So I definitely look on getting into one of the platforms before I start my own shop. I think it just makes a lot more sense from a financial standpoint and also from a potential business standpoint, for the simple fact of you have an audience established to sell to, and you probably don't have to invest anything in ads up front, meaning that your upfront costs are lower, You can make more money. And for the people saying, well, I have an eBay shop, I have an Etsy shop, I have an Amazon shop, I want to expand into my own shop. How do I do this now? I'd also look into doing free advertising if I wanted to have my own Shopify shop. Now, how do you do that? Let me explain. I would be using Facebook Marketplace. I think this is probably one of the hottest places at the minute which you can use to run free ads. Facebook Marketplace allows you to list items very easily, but as far as I'm aware in the UK and in my experience, there's no way to pay for these items. All you have to do is get the listing up there and then establish a time, date or place that you're going to A, send the item to the person, or B, pick the item up from the person. So what this means is you have the perfect opportunity to get traffic on your listings. Then you can direct that traffic to your website, whether it be on Shopify or something else. I've done this a few times on Shopify and made sales doing this, and to be honest, this is the only way I've ever made sales on Shopify. Nothing else has seemed to work. The thing about businesses like dropshipping and all of these models is everyone thinks that you need to reinvent the wheel to have a successful business. And the sad thing about pioneering is the first person to pioneer often doesn't succeed massively because the creation's too clunky, it doesn't work properly, and all these sorts of issues. And to kind of bring that back to the topic of dropshipping, what it means is that when you're listing your items on Shopify, when you're building your website, you're going to miss things. You're not a website developer unless you are, but you're more than likely not a website developer. You don't know that much about customer service and you're going to run into trouble. I'd rather do that on a site where I can have that backup where, say, on eBay or Amazon, if I get it wrong, it's, hey, eBay or Amazon's going to step in and sort it for the customer if worst comes to worst. But, you have that extra level of push, you have that extra level of someone telling you how things can work, so you understand how a retail business, generally speaking, does work, allowing you to get that first level of understanding, which is going to be key. If we're trying to establish a proper brand, it might actually be best to have our own Shopify store or our Instagram page which promotes that. But if we're trying to just make money as a business person, we don't necessarily need to have our own website to do that. I've seen articles of people who make 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, 200,000 pounds a month on eBay alone, on Etsy alone, on Shopify alone, on Amazon alone. And it doesn't matter whether you are doing this on Shopify or an established marketplace. The point is, the marketplace does not limit you. The only thing is, it saves you the cost of having to spend on advertising up front. It may come out as a fee later, or you may choose to put money into it, but you've got a more likely chance of converting that customer because they trust where they're shopping. And what we talk about here is a conversions rate ratio. Which method of doing business is more likely to convert? Does it make more sense to sell on a platform or to sell on our own site? I think for most people, in my opinion, it makes more sense to sell on an established platform. This is something I see all the time. Why does my dropshipping store not work? It's because you don't know very much about how to program a store. You haven't included your, about page, your terms and conditions, your shipping policy. All these sorts of things are going to matter massively to the customer, because otherwise they're going to think this is a really rip-off, disingenuous site where they're just going to get scammed, so they're not going to be happy to buy from it. Amazon, Etsy, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, all of these things are listed. We know about how these companies work. They've been established for tens of years, literally decades. They have their foot in the door and people feel comfortable shopping with them. They're advertised on the TV and everyone knows these brands. People do not really even understand that they're buying from an individual rather than buying from eBay or Etsy or Amazon itself. And a lot of people are clocking onto this. A lot of people are starting and have been for some time drop shipping on places like eBay or Amazon, for example, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's now a bad time to start. There's always a niche that you can enter. There's always something you can do slightly better, slightly differently to attract new customers, different customers, and have better or at least different results. Like, people need to realize it is not about reinventing the wheel, as I've said. It's just about doing stuff in a way that works. So we can talk about building the big brand, but for people who don't have much startup capital, don't have the money to play with ads or to play with marketing of any kind, why should we do that up front? Why should we invest £200, £300 into ads without any potential return of getting it back? If I waste an hour of my time listing on Amazon or Etsy, even if I don't get my time back, I've not lost a penny. I'm not actually down very much. I'd have probably spent that time watching TV anyway, so I've not lost anything. And that's why I recommend to the average person looking to start a business, probably start selling on one of the platforms. It's easiest, it makes most sense, and I think it's probably the best way to do dropshipping into 2023 and 2024. And finally, I know a lot of people are going to be thinking, well, don't these sites have a policy against dropshipping of some kind? And this is a thing. I'm not going to say which platform to sell on or to not sell on. I made a video talking about how eBay and dropshipping works just a few days ago, but I'm not here in this video to speak about each company's individual policy. I'm an individual, you're an individual. You'll have to research this for yourself. Some platforms are very happy with dropshipping, some platforms don't like it at all. Some platforms will ban you for it, and some platforms will applaud you for it and get you higher in the algorithm. So I'm not here to say which one's the best. I was just giving the 3 examples because they are the mainstream marketplaces, but others of course do exist. So research into what platforms allow it. Of course, be safe with that. Don't get your account banned for dropshipping, because then you are running an unsustainable business which people essentially cannot really get on with long term because it won't work. So once you've established that kind of stuff, you'll be in a much better place, in my opinion, to at least start your dropshipping journey on an established platform. I think it is probably, for most people, the vast majority of people, the better way to go about things. So thank you for watching this video. I think it's been a good one, and I hope it was useful. This is just an introduction into dropshipping. If you want to see more on this topic, I'm more than happy to talk about it. As someone who's been dropshipping for the majority of 2023 and had some decent results, I understand this a bit and I've learned a lot. I'm still learning and I'm always trying to advance, but there's a lot that I've learned so far, and I hope that I can share it with you guys as I go on to learn even more. So if this video was useful to you, don't forget to like it and share it with somebody else who might be able to use it. So again, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in our next video, which will of course be coming out again very soon. Thank you, and see you again soon.